Hello and welcome back to a new episode of Ground Tactician The Civil War, where we are playing the Union career mode. Last episode we urged Maclenan's forces to capture Winchester, leading to success in the Shenandoah campaign. In addition, we sent cavalry into the Confederate West to hopefully force West Virginia to break free. We also repelled multiple rebel attacks and won major victories over our enemies. Unfortunately, our men are still unable to move, but so is our enemy. Let's gather our forces so that we can move forward. And to make sure that we have a better chance in the battles ahead, I've decided to recruit some more units. Also, our most depleted units that we can reinforce have been sent home, meaning that currently we are not in our best fighting shape. Our current fighting strength is only about 15,500 soldiers and 7,200 men are being transferred. The last men are about to arrive in about 50 days. And to make sure that we always have enough weapons for our soldiers, it would be wise if we invest into weapons production. For about 4,000 of our prestige, we can influence this project. And now it is time to watch the enemies withdraw from their current attack route. It looks like they're going to try to reform their ranks behind the Rappahannock, and we can see that the 1st Division is in contact with the enemy, and Field's Corps is withdrawing. 1st Division of Army of Occupation is massively stronger than the enemy, and they could simply kick them out. We can see that the Army of the Virginia is once again coming up to our lines, but they have also decided to withdraw. We inflicted a couple casualties on these soldiers, and hopefully soon some of our men will be in fighting shape again. But for now, all of our soldiers are in red. And someone burned down the supply hub at Manassas Junction, even though we controlled it. Army of Virginia is coming up again. It is either the entire army or it is just the headquarters. They have 2,000 soldiers. I wonder if they might want to outflank Winchester. And over here, the 1st Division, it would be lovely if they start to further harass the Army of Northwestern Virginia. We were still unable to directly engage the enemy. They've taken a couple more casualties. Can we order the 1st Division to move forward and hunt down the enemy? It is only going to cost us 65 prestige, therefore not a huge cost. And we can see that McDowell's raiders have made it down to West Virginia. Over here the Army of the Northwest is there, but they only have 46 soldiers. And yes, there is a battle raging on. 6,000 men are facing off against 852. This should be an easy Union victory. And we have won a glorious victory at Front Royal. The Army of Northwestern Virginia is fleeing in a panic and the support for the rebel corps wavers, meaning that the 1st Division was successful. The Army of Northwestern Virginia is now withdrawing. Maybe the 2nd Division. Well, the 2nd Division is not able to capture them. For now, we simply have to wait until we are ready to move again. But we are now controlling a massive chunk in the Deep South. Can we order McDowell's men to take over this position? There he would also have more supply. His men are not in the best fighting shape, but they have over 2,000 and these guys are just 46. They should simply overrun them. And we can see that these forces are still stuck in the area. 1st Division is building some new supply stations. We still have a supply station over here, or at least we had one. It looks like this was also abandoned. Let's order the men to build a new supply station. And in our headquarters, the last action was successful. Let's go on another fundraising campaign so that we have some money to work with. And there was another victory at Staunton. The army of the Northwest is filling and the support for the rebel cause favors just a little bit more. Meaning that we were able to hunt down these guys out of this position. Come on, McDowell, move forward and capture this town. It would be very good for us if we can force West Virginia to break free from the Confederates. And a new funding policy has been enacted in the Confederacy. There have been new taxes proposed and the government is going to issue war bonds. The private wealth is in danger. Everything that brings the Confederate government closer to collapse is very good for us. And I just wish our soldiers would be in fighting shape already. The 3rd Division is almost up there. They have 77% of rifle ammunition and 9% of artillery ammunition. That is at least something. Let's get the men down to Manassas Junction, if they can. And there we're going to construct another fort to make sure that the rebels cannot use this railroad line anymore. Once the rest of our forces are ready to move, we are going to send some forces over here while the rest is going to outflank the enemy over here. Then my plan would be to kick the army of the Shenandoah out of this section. But this is of course only if they do not act first. And currently we do not have the initiative. I have spent a little bit of time watching at the strategy map, and it looks like the last city that we need to capture to force West Virginia to break free from the Confederacy is Louisburg. Let's once again influence McDowell's men to move forward. This is going to cost us 500 of our prestige and maybe give the Confederates a new supply station, but it will be worth it. But maybe he is going to wait until he captures the town, or maybe not. It doesn't really matter for us. Let's hope that he captures this town to make sure that this part of the Confederacy is going to break free. And we might even be able to occupy the Virginia Military Institute. Army of the Northwest is withdrawing north. Hopefully they're not going to influence within our plans. Come on, McDowell, move it. We do not have much time. How's the situation in the north looking? 2nd Division has moved forward just a little bit. Our fort and our supply station are getting up there. Over here another supply station is getting created. And all of our units are out of the red, but they are still unable to move. And yes, Virginia is divided. The Union is victorious in the mountains and a new axis of attack opens. The Southern support wavers and we have a new loyal state on our side. These are amazing news. We can see that in the north a new unit under Morgan's raiders have been deployed and the fresh Union recruits are now offered bounties. The desertion rates are recorded to be higher amongst bountymen and the morale of those recruits is questionable. There have been first reports of bounty jumping as every fresh recruit gets $300 as a bonus. But we are desperately going to need this manpower. Over in New York, a fresh army is getting set up and these soldiers are now preparing to get to the front lines. With some fresh forces we should be able to break through the Confederate lines with ease. And let's also use some of our prestige to further study our logistical corps. This way we have the option to better supply our forces. Our soldiers are getting healthier and healthier by the day. And in about 2 weeks some of the units that have been sent home to replenish are going to be back. But it still hurts an awful lot that we cannot press the advantage that we held. Let's order our 3rd Division to raid the enemy camps. This will hopefully decrease the enemy supply state. Morgan's raiders are ready. And maybe we should send them down to Staunton. This way we get their supplies. And we capture another valuable town for the Union. And a couple more Springfield rifled muskets are available for our armies. And we can see that some of our forces are on the move again. Very good. It looks like to be the army of the Potomac. They should heavily outnumber the enemy in the area. They're trying to capture this fort that we previously held for a short while. And once our soldiers are ready to move on the enemy, I would like to attack these forces to drive them back, to make sure that these men do not get any help from the Confederates. Our supply station is ready, and these men are about to be able to move again. These men are also getting ready, and our 3rd Division is now the first unit that is at full readiness. And something unprecedented happened in American history. Lincoln is meeting with black leaders, and they're discussing a colonization plan so that the black population can resettle after the American Civil War. But why would we like to get rid of our own population? These soldiers are going to fight valuably on our side, and I do not see this as a wise decision. We can see that the Army of Virginia is back to full house, and the Army of the Shenandoah is also about to be ready once more. They have about 7,800 soldiers in Sybil's division, and maybe even double the size in the entire army. And Fort Achaia has surrendered to Union forces. Let's order the 2nd Division of Army of Occupation forward. They're going to link up with our own forces. We are about to be able to move, and we can see that there is massive movement down here. A battle is raging on. Can we see how it is currently looking? 5,300 Union forces are clashing with 14,900 Confederates. Can we get our men forward together with the 2nd Division to hopefully stop that? We only have 4,000 soldiers over here. The Department of the Pennsylvania is getting down. This is looking grim. Let's order our own soldiers forward. We want to capture these soldiers if possible to give our allied commanders as much time as possible. Some of our men are still unable to move. Let's get our headquarters forward as well. And over here, the Army of Occupation has also been ordered forward. The numbers are still heavily on the Confederate side, and we are trying to capture the enemy over here. 5,000 men are over here facing off against 14,000. Nope, this is apparently still the same battle. Come on. We need to catch the enemy. Everyone, move forward. First Division is also coming up. Can't we do something to help here? The numbers are getting a little bit more even. 11,000 Union soldiers are now fighting 14,000 Confederates. Still, we do not have the manpower advantage, and for some reason we are unable to engage these units from the Army of Shenandoah. We are always getting referred down to this battlefield. It is currently 2 o'clock in the night. Some forces are still streaming in. Our men over here are moving forward. Very good. And apparently we can now enter the battle. Let's wait for our 4th division to arrive, then we should hopefully be strong enough. Let's get into it. Gentlemen, today is August 16, 1862. Our scouts report that the enemy is near Stafford, Virginia, and our army is to prepare for battle. We are facing the army of the Potomac under command of Mexigregg with strength of some 3,000 soldiers and 8 guns. The enemy army is inexperienced and the morale is reported to be confident. Reports indicate the supply situation is outstanding. The supply state of our army is outstanding as well. And currently we are facing a defensive battle around Fredericksburg. For now our forces are deployed and the battle is about to begin. We can see that we are facing the majority of the Confederate army in front of our trench line. I've decided to fortify the upper part of Maria's Heights to make sure that the enemy has to fight up this slope. This is going to give our artillery a perfect position to rain down on the enemy. We have multiple strong breastworks over here and we have an entire brigade as a reserve to rush in wherever needed. Let's hope that this is enough to grant us a victory. We can see that our artillery is already starting to open up. These units are all focusing on fire at will, but I want at least one of those artillery pieces to focus on counter battery fire. The 3-inch ordnances are also going to focus on counter battery fire. And as soon as the enemy gets into range, we are going to blast them out of there. But it looks like the enemy infantry is currently not moving. While we can see some of the forces now starting to move, there is another potential way up for the enemy. We have some forces over here to engage them if necessary. Let's hope that we can simply shell the enemy into submission. We can see the enemy move down here. It looks like they're trying to break out to the flanks. And our allied commanders are hopefully soon going to arrive on the field. 3rd Division so far has 2 casualties and we can see that they are leaving the 2nd Tennessee battery more or less unguarded. One of our commanders is already wounded. Let's get skirmishers out to, if possible, silence those batteries if we can. The first enemy forces are rushing up. It was the 2nd North Carolina. This should be an infantry regiment, a cavalry regiment that is already fairly under strength. And I've did a small hiccup with the setup. We are unable to reach the enemy lines from here. Other forces are of course going to get into danger. Let's get the 3rd main infantry forward so that we can outflank the enemy. More forces are starting to push. And our guns are going to make a bloodbath under those soldiers. These skirmishers, I think, need to get recalled soon. But so far they are still able to hit the enemy guns. 2 casualties have been inflicted. And now infantry, come back, if possible. The enemy is on a general attack. We can see that the men from Maine are now rear flanking the 56th Virginia. And I am going to send some reserves over here. It looks like the enemy is willing to throw everything at the line. Let's focus these soldiers on the enemy flanks. So far we are holding quite well. Let's hope our morale doesn't break. We have already inflicted 237 casualties on the enemy. More forces over here are falling back. The soldiers from Maine now suffered 5 casualties. These men also need to shift slightly so that we can hit the 56 Virginia. Let's get these soldiers forward and hunt down the 2nd Tennessee. We might be able to clear parts of this flank early. Over here more of the enemy forces are falling back. These men are now getting outflanked and need to focus further on the enemy. A real shame, as they were able to hit the flank of the 4th Tennessee. These artillery pieces are able to hit them with canister. So far we're looking at a minor defeat. And we can see that Union forces are slow to arrive, but they are arriving. Confederate reinforcements have not yet made it to the field. The enemy is shooting us at point-blank range. The 4th Tennessee is now falling back. We have achieved a minor victory so far. And I think it would be wise to send the 9th Connecticut forward to help on this section of the front line. Over here, 1st Tennessee needs to shoot at the 55th Virginia. They have reformed their ranks. Our men over here are taking some casualties, but we are able to hit the enemy. 8th New York Infantry, get forward so that you can also hit the enemy. We have driven away many of their forces, but they still have something in reserve. Over here the bloodbath continues, and I'm very happy that we have prepared our parapets. 18th Georgia is coming up. Let's get the cavalry ready. These gentlemen need to shift their fire, otherwise they're getting outflanked. And it looks like they are now willing to charge us. We have soldiers over here. Make it count, man. Make it count. These cavalrymen need to dismount and move up on the flank of the 14th Georgia. The enemy is trying to break our flank. Come on, man. Make it. Make it. You need to make it. Up here, more Confederate soldiers are pushing our lines. Our attack over here is looking well. Let's hope we can hold over here. 1st New Jersey State Militia is suffering terrible losses. Our artillery is able to open up on their flanks, and we have cavalry that is dismounting and that is getting ready to open up on the enemy flank. But it looks like this flank might be lost. 33rd Pennsylvania, do not engage the enemy in front of you. You need to hit the enemy in the flank if you want to have any chance of survival. Over here we are outflanking the 21st Georgia. They are now falling back, giving us a little bit of space to breathe. The 17th North Carolina is coming up over here. And I'm going to send the 1st Tennessee Infantry forward to the men of the 4th South Carolina. Let's push the enemy over here. I accidentally sent skirmishers out to capture enemy guns. Not intended, but I'm also not going to complain if they succeed. These men from Connecticut are getting outflanked, but the 1st Tennessee should have an easy time with the 4th South Carolina. We have stabilized this front line, but the 2nd District of Columbia Battery is in a hard place. 15th Georgia is up the hill. The 14th Georgia is also fighting an uphill battle. We are still able to hit the enemy. 3rd New Jersey State Militia is holding. And over here we are still raining down on the enemy flank. We have lost 467 soldiers and the enemy suffered 1,700 casualties so far. Where are our reinforcements? The first lines are now marching through Fredericksburg. Very good, very good. We desperately need those soldiers. Semis detachment is about to capture some artillery. Come on, man. You have 14-pounder James rifles. I know you cannot hold this position forever, but let's try to beat them over on this flank. Ninth Connecticut is still getting flanked, but they are holding remarkably well. 4th South Carolina is also still holding, but their numbers are dropping. 4th Rhode Island was able to drive back the 51st. Very good, very good. Over here our flank is still not looking good. Our cavalry has suffered 5 casualties. Very good. The enemy is focusing on the 4th New Jersey State Militia. Unfortunately, we are unable to reinforce many of these soldiers, and the commander of the militia brigade has been wounded. 1st Connecticut Cavalry is about to arrive. And down here more forces are streaming onto the battlefield. I wonder where this infantry unit went that had to withdraw. Maybe they're already back in contact. Down here these soldiers need to face the 18th Georgia that are now coming up the hill. How is the situation over here looking? We are driving back some of the artillery detachments. Let's get more forces forward. Hampton's Legion is coming up again. And I'm going to send the commander of the 3rd Brigade forward. These guns can now focus on fire at will. And it looks like we have stopped the enemy onslaught. No, we need to send these forces over here. This was stupid of me to send them on a section where they're not needed. The commander of the 4th Division is trying to motivate the men from Ohio who are now starting to suffer casualties, but they're now getting outflanked by our brave soldiers. 3rd New Jersey State Militia suffered 87 casualties and they are raining it down on the 10th South Carolina. I'm immensely proud of our soldiers. For the cost of 6,340 of our men, we have already stopped over 2,200 of the rebels. The 2nd Texas Battery is now starting to fall back. And we are still pushing forward. And over here the 5th Connecticut and the 1st Tennessee can now move on the enemy guns. The same goes for the 9th Connecticut, who is already able to hit 4th detachment, but the 14th Mississippi Battery is a much more inviting target. First Ohio is still getting shelled. Let's get them forward so that they can blast away the enemy. And it looks like the Union counterattack is about to begin. Still no sign of Confederate reinforcements. I have spoken too soon. The enemy is rushing up and they are behind our rear, but I'm sure that the Union forces are able to deal with them. Over here more of their forces are falling back. Let's get these men into cover. First Connecticut, you're going to pull back in the trenches and you're going to rest. We might need to send some forces into our rear line in case that the Confederates really decide to attack us and that the Union lines break. They still have a massive force over on this area. And currently we are trying to get rid of the Confederate artillery. I'm going to send the 2nd New Jersey infantry forward. There shouldn't be any infantry in the area that could hit them. And maybe we're able to destroy 4th detachment. Over here it looks like the enemy is trying to get more soldiers on our flank. I'm going to send the 3rd Pennsylvania behind our lines and then forward on this flank. And over here the 50th Virginia is trying to attack our soldiers. This battery is about to be destroyed. And our men are raining down on them. Let's get the 4th Rhode Island infantry forward just a little bit so that they can hit them. And over here the 49th Virginia is still trying to resist. Let's get the men dispersed so that we can outflank the enemy. And if we are lucky we might be able to get a good position on this hilltop. Then we could, in theory, start pressing the enemy flank. More enemy forces are now streaming on the battlefield. They are in our rear and it looks like our own reinforcements have not yet reacted. But it is the 7th Alabama and the 7th Virginia. They are fairly under strength and I can't see any more units. While there's the 3rd Tennessee battery, this one is relatively strong, and the 1st Mississippi battery. But still, they shouldn't be a match for our forces. Union reinforcements are taking their sweet time to get on the field. 1st Tennessee is now wavering. You're going to fall back under fire. I do not want to see any of you running. Over here we're having a hard time hunting down the last enemy resistance. And it looks like they might be able to reform their lines. How are our casualties looking? We have now suffered 844 losses. And it might be wise to break off this engagement. And try to get our soldiers back into the safety of our own lines. Taylor's detachment is coming up, and over here the 1st Georgia is also rushing forward. But we should have an easy time dealing with that cavalry. Men from Rhode Island, also focus your fire. 5th Connecticut, you're going to get out of the front line. 49th Virginia is still holding strong. They're falling back bit by bit, but we are still hunting them. Our men are getting low on ammunition. And over here the 1st Tennessee also need to shift and open up. More enemy forces are rushing up. 2nd New Jersey. Oh, you are falling back into the trench line. Over here we are hitting the 15th North Carolina. Our reinforcements made it in time. 1st Ohio Cavalry suffered over 68 casualties. And I think these guns can now focus on counter battery fire. The rest of our artillery pieces are still trying to hit enemy infantry. These guns are trying to focus on the 13th South Carolina, not the worst target, but the 2nd Arkansas would be a much better one. 3rd New Jersey is out of ammunition. And enemy cavalry is still holding strong. Our men have suffered over 143 casualties. And they are now getting charged. Let's order them to fall back. Yeah, this is unfortunately one Union regiment routed. And the enemy is charging over here, but we have them under flanking fire. These cavalrymen from Georgia should also break soon. And I think there's no point in keeping the soldiers over here. Let's order them to fall back. If the enemy is starting a counterattack, these guys could be cut off. So far we have also done the majority of the fighting. It is time that someone else is taking over. 38 New York, also fall back. I want this to be an orderly withdrawal. And over here, gentlemen, it would be fine of you to finally start engaging the enemy. There's some action on the bridge. The enemy can rain down on our soldiers unopposed. Why ever they let that happen? 5th Brigade, you're with me now. Get forward. We need fresh blood on the front lines. Remarkably, the 3rd North Carolina Cavalry is still holding, even though they suffered over 100 casualties. But now they start to run. Let's get the 1st Tennessee Infantry forward as soon as the cavalry is out of the way. That way we should be able to outflank this entire section of the front line. Enemy forces are trying to come up over here, but our soldiers are still stopping them. These men have suffered severely, but they are still holding. And as soon as fresh detachments make it onto the battlefield, we can replace some of our soldiers. Come on, man, get in the trench line. We do not have any reserves. Now, let's get these men forward on the enemy flank. And over here it looks like the first parts of our units are making it back to our battle line. A shame that we weren't able to twist the entire Confederate flank, but so far we are still outnumbered. In total, we of course outnumber the enemy, but we are getting left alone by our allied commanders. And these men, even though I've ordered to, are taking their sweet time to replace our soldiers. I want these New Yorkers out so that they can recover. Oh well, these guys from New Jersey, my apologies. They're down to 116 men. And you guys better get into cover. Come on, man. Get into cover. We have dug these trench lines for a reason. Down here, some Confederate forces are probing forward. And we need the commander of the 3rd Brigade to pull back behind our lines. Another charge is happening by the enemy. The 17th Georgia is pushing up. They have 200 soldiers. And I can't figure out how the situation is over here. We have over 495. We should be able to rout them. Let's order these men to also charge in. Yes, there we send the 17th Georgia running. Very good. Now, man, face back onto the enemy. Eighth Maine is already wavering, and the 3rd New York still hasn't made it out of the field. Retreat, men, retreat. And finally, Union reinforcements are starting to push up. 4th Pennsylvania is in the trench line. 18th Maine is still struggling to do that. The same goes for the 3rd Illinois. Let's get these soldiers forward. We are still holding the enemy back, and we are doing that remarkably effectively. Over here the enemy is unwilling to engage. A wise decision. Finally, our man from New Jersey made it off the field. And enemy cavalry from South Carolina are once again trying to charge our guns. Men, get forward, hit them in the crossfire. Artillery, blast them out of there. Punish those cavalrymen. And soon the enemy should be bled dry. They've already suffered over 3,500 casualties, while we only suffered 1,300. But I assume that the majority of those were our own casualties. If I could find our commander, I could tell how bad the situation is. 9th Connecticut have reformed their ranks. Let's get forward in the trench line. There's our commander. The 1,289 casualties, almost 1,300 that we suffered were from our own mine. And the Union takes their sweet time to attack the enemy. Over here there's still fighting going on alongside this creek, but this enemy force is not very strong. We should deal with them easily if this commander would just send their forces forward. And if we take a closer look on the casualty list, we see that we suffered 253 killed and over 963 wounded and 254 men missing. In total 1,470 casualties, 5% of our army. We also lost 2 of our artillery pieces. On the Confederate side, however, they suffered over 657 killed and 2,450 wounded and 567 missing, meaning that they lost over 3,600 men in total, 22% of their force. This is very good for us, and we might look at another major federal victory. But this of course can only happen if the Union forces start to push. Our own men are quite depleted and are unable to do so. Our men are still able to hit the enemy and have not taken too many casualties themselves. Let's get skirmishers forward. Nope, we can't do that. We can get skirmishers out from the 1st Tennessee. And my hope is that they are able to hit this artillery detachment. The enemy is now opening up with some forces that were previously lying down, allowing us to take them as target practice. Over here the 56th Virginia is looking at our forces that have the option to hang back. And over here something unfortunate happened. Our men rush out, trying to hunt down the enemy. Men, fall back into the trench line. You are the weakest part in our line, and you could easily be outflanked and overwhelmed by the enemy. We can see that the 56th Virginia is coming up, and they're trying to contest our cavalry. We need to get those soldiers back in cover before a nightmare happens. 3rd Illinois, march up there. Patrick's detachment is up there. I guess they've taken over some of our artillery pieces. 8th Maine, get forward and attack the enemy. Hyman's detachment is wavering. This is quite acceptable for me. We are doing a good amount of damage to the enemy. How is the situation in the north looking? The 3rd Tennessee Battery is taking casualties, they are now wavering, and the 1st Mississippi has also taken casualties. The 7th Pennsylvania is still on the field. And if these infantry regiments would just push up, they could defeat those forces in detail. Once more soldiers are trying to rush up. The 22nd Georgia is now behind our lines. But they have been routed. If the 56th Virginia would be off the field, I would love to send the cavalry behind them. Come on, man, open fire, open fire. You have them directly in front of you. Hooker's detachment is out here. Maybe they're able to hit Green's man. And the 1st Tennessee is now getting nervous. Let's get these soldiers back. They have earned a good rest. The same goes for the 5th Connecticut Infantry. The morale of our forces seems to waver. The 2nd New Jersey is almost broken. They have taken over 100 casualties and they were already under strength. But we have massive amounts of forces still behind our lines. Let's get our wavering forces out. And make sure that others are continuing the fight in their name. Let's get the commander of the 4th Division back behind our lines. The same goes with the commander of the 3rd Brigade. 52nd Virginia is still on the field, I guess because our forces are out of ammunition, and over here we have driven back Green's detachment. Enemy artillery is now starting to hurt us, but I hope that we can deal with them with focused counter battery fire. These guns can also focus, while these guns should potentially still focus on anti-infantry fire, as we still have to deal with some more forces that are marching up over on our flank. Do we have someone over here who isn't wavering and who isn't a bloody coward? Well, the 4th Brigade is looking good. Let's finally send forces over to help this beleaguered flank. These cavalrymen need to fall back. They are getting outflanked and outmatched over here. 3rd Illinois is still wavering. The men from Kentucky are still holding strong. And the majority of the Union line has not yet engaged the enemy. As our center grows weaker, I think it's good to send the North Connecticut Infantry over on this trench line. And over here the 3rd New York needs to march up over here in case that the enemy is able to outflank us on a massive scale. We are heavily outnumbered by the enemy. Let's focus these guns on fire as well. And on the enemy infantry. We can see that more forces are starting to relocate. Maybe they're trying to get away, maybe they're trying to outflank us. Over here we are still fighting, but it looks like the Confederate reserves have been exhausted. If we would just get a little bit more help from our allied commanders. Casualties are now starting for our own side. We have suffered over 1,700 casualties, while the enemy suffered over 4,100. I'll need a little bit longer until we have inflicted a major defeat on them. 3rd New Jersey is coming up. We have the 1st New York Cavalry coming up over here, and more infantry is also en route. 2nd New Jersey is almost broken. They need to recover. 1st Kentucky is still on the field, and we have cleaned the area of any infantry in front of our immediate battle line. And I think it could be interesting to send the 4th Rhode Island forward on the 13th South Carolina. These soldiers are already wavering, and they do not have any infantry support in the immediate area. 3rd Illinois also move forward. Over here the enemy is charging our lines. Gentlemen, it is time to mount up again and to hit the enemy. Some of our forces, the 33rd Pennsylvania, is now running, and they're running into the Confederate lines. 4th New York, charge the enemy. 3rd New Jersey, I know you're completely exhausted, but you also need to charge in. Your charge might be enough to drive them back. Yes, it worked. Now, 4th New Jersey, focus on the 52nd Virginia. And the 3rd New Jersey can fall back. Come on, men, open fire, open fire. Our men from New Jersey are running. That is acceptable. They're sending up the 2nd Arkansas Battery. 4th New Jersey State Militia is now also wavering. First New York Cavalry, if you can, charge the enemy. You have their flank exposed. This could save our lines until the reinforcements arrive. Come on, men, just march towards the enemy. These artillery pieces are about to set up. They are 10-pounder rifles. They should be a massive help here. 3rd Illinois is opening fire. Their morale is not the best. Let's try to get them just a little bit back so that they are out of range for some enemy units. We are now starting to hit the 2nd Arkansas Battery. This is very good for us. And these men are attacking the enemy so slow that every advantage is lost. Let's try to get them out. And let's try to get these soldiers to shoot on the 52nd Virginia. Enemy forces are trying to charge. 2nd New Jersey, open up, open up, open up. 1st Kentucky, shift and open fire. Over here the 9th Connecticut needs to move forward on the 19th Georgia. 1st New York Infantry is falling back. The 1st Ohio Cavalry is still holding. The question is, how long can they do that? 17th Massachusetts, move forward. Reinforcements are finally arriving. And we are driving back these forces as we have them in a crossfire. Over here, the 4th Rhode Island has rushed out far before our lines. Let's order them to retreat. There isn't really much that they could do. They could hit the 4th Mississippi Battery, and I think they were doing that. But it would be wise to keep those soldiers alive. 33rd Pennsylvania, reshift over here. And these men need to focus now on the 19th Georgia. Men from Arkansas are withdrawing. And over here we can focus on the 10th South Carolina. The Russian detachment move forward, and these men from Maine are taking their sweet time. Second New Jersey Infantry, I know you're completely exhausted, but for some reason the reinforcements that we are requesting are taking forever to arrive on the field. Let's get the 1st Ohio Cavalry back. 17th Maine is coming up, and they should stabilize the position. Very good. Over here the 19th is now also running. Let's get these men from Connecticut back into fighting order. The same goes with the soldiers from Kentucky. 2nd New Jersey. No, 2nd New Jersey, you have earned to rest. 8th Maine, move forward. And over here the 3rd Illinois is going to get into the trench line. We now have more forces over here. And the enemy is starting to hang back. They have lost 27% of their force, 4,400 casualties, while we suffered 2,000. I hope that my corps is still intact after this fight. A fresh enemy attack is starting. The 1st Florida is trying to get through the gap in our lines. Let's get the 3rd New Jersey militia on them. And let's once again push our soldiers from Connecticut forward. This gap is an unexpectedly good position for our soldiers. Over here we are now driving away the 52nd Virginia, and the 10th South Carolina should follow soon. After that we can send forces over here. 3rd Illinois is now also arriving on the battlefield. Let's hope they stay there. It is now 16 o'clock. Hopefully we can end this battle before the day drags on. Over here Confederate forces are miraculously still on the battlefield. Come on, man, we need to defeat the enemy before they have time to send more reinforcements. It looks like they are now trying to attack us once more in greater numbers. Let's get the 17th Massachusetts up there. The Russian detachment is here, our HQ is also here. The commander of the militia brigade is wounded. 3rd Illinois, if possible, get into cover. Over here we are outflanking the 1st Florida. And the 3rd New Jersey, once they have aren't in on their target, should be able to hit them in the rear. Very good. The 10th South Carolina is falling back. The 52nd Virginia is the only one left on this side of the battle. And we have now inflicted major casualties on the enemy. They are now forced to fall back. This was a hard battle. This was a costly battle. We have lost over 1,700 of our soldiers. And we need to send the commander of the 2nd Brigade back before he gets wounded. I doubt that we have the strength to hunt down the enemy. We have barely survived. This fight. But we have done whatever was possible to hold off the enemy offensive. And we have done that mostly without support from our allied commanders. This fight was hard. We have lost over 2,100 of our soldiers. The majority of those were from our own command. The rebels, however, suffered even greater. They have lost over 4,600 of their men, casualties that they struggled to replace. And after our glorious victory at Stafford, the Army of the Potomac is fleeing in a panic, and General William becomes a national hero. Colonel Whitfield loses face, and the support for the rebel cause wavers. I wonder who this General Williams is, but I have definitely not seen him on the front lines. We should now see that the army of the Shenandoah is limping back. And over here, the rebel forces should further retreat behind the Rappahannock River and maybe even abandon Fredericksburg. Our forces took heavy casualties, but we once more stand triumphant. And we are preparing to march forward. Some of our forces are still hanging back, but I'm sure that they're going to catch up soon. We now have over 1,800 disabled soldiers, and some of our forces are looking very weak. But others are still in a good fighting shape. I worry mostly about the soldiers from New Jersey, as for a long time there were no recruits available. But now I can see that 730 recruits are available to refill our ranks. Therefore, let's send the 3rd New Jersey Infantry back to get replenished. The rest of the soldiers from New Jersey unfortunately have to wait if any more recruits are available after this force have come back. Otherwise we weaken our own position too much. The rebels are slowly fleeing, they have entrenched themselves in Fredericksburg proper, and we have finally made some lasting moves on the enemy. And I think this look on the current front line is a good point to end this episode. I hope you've enjoyed it, and until we meet again, I wish you all a great time.